The Velar plugs a hole in Land Rover's scope of Range Rovers. It's greater than the Evoque yet more modest than the Sport. It lives on a similar stage as the Jaguar F-Pace, however it looks longer, lower, not so much upstanding, but rather more, whoa, truth be told. It's costly, yet it's favorable luck to look and feel costly as well. It's sumptuous and has more rough terrain ability than most adversaries, and than the Jag. In size, the Velar sits somewhere close to a BMW X4 and X6, Mercedes GLC Coupe and GLE Coupe, or more the Audi Q5. In the event that you can't best the Germans, split the distinction and track down your own specialty. Smooth, pared back and thinned down style takes need over total space or rough terrain toughness. The Velar's outline is very quick, set apart by a rising belt, falling rooftop, squeezed tail and a ton of screen rake. The surfaces are unadulterated as snow. Particularly around the nose, it's bare of step lines, the grille, lights and guard carefully flush. Which makes the number plate plinth stand apart like a tissue wound. Additionally, the phony vents on the cap and beneath the entryway mirrors. In any case, in the entirety of it's an all-around worked shape, and on the off chance that you see it's anything but a Range Rover Sport, you immediately perceive how the skin has been pulled tight, the rooftop dropped and the subtleties finely thinned. Jump out entryway handles. The Lodge is significantly to a greater extent a disclosure, for the manner in which style and capacity meet in glass cockpit framework for showcases and controls. It's anything but a low-proportion move box, nor the decoupling against roll bars you can get on the Sport. So it's anything but completely spec'd to Land Rover's furthest 4x4 junkie level. In any case, by most norms it's hugely able in the wild, which is consoling for that feeling of realness when you're leaving close to all the German grain in the Homestead Food Shop Vehicle League. For 2021, there's another scope of motors, remembering an attachment for half-breed P400E adaptation for certain 33 miles of guaranteed motor off-range. We've tried it close by the D300 diesel, presently a 48-volt gentle crossbreed help straight 6 which saves 7 kilograms versus the V6 it's supplanting, and the 4-chamber D200 diesel. Number 1. What is the verdict? The Velar majors on style yet it's anything but a helpful vehicle. It's spacious enough for a family, not so large it's abnormal in urban communities, and fit for surprising rough terrain accomplishments. In a manner it's difficult to see direct adversaries. The Jaguar F-Pace sister vehicle goes facing the sportier German Resistance. The Velar's Lodge and new showcase control framework are nice to utilize and lovely. It's a decent spot to be in the long haul, yet the underlying effect is shocking. Give anybody a lift and they'll be wowed. For the driver, it's about loosened up security instead of commitment. Allow it to bring down your pulse and appreciate the all-encompassing perspective on the view. What's more, the new scope of motors seem to have future-proofed it somewhat more. On the off chance that a Defender is excessively upstanding and utilitarian for your preferences, this is the Land Rover to be seen in. The D300 is a peach, the P400 is interesting, and the P400e PHEV a truly all-around arranged module alternative in a vicious space of the market. To put it plainly, Land Rover has taken a vehicle that was generally excellent, and improved it, without disturbing the looks that made you need one in any case. Number 2. What is it like on the inside? It's not as tall as a Range Rover or a Sport, but you still feel elevated. And it does feel like a distinct product, whereas an Audi, BMW, Mercedes, Alfa or Jaguar crossover of this size has a cabin that's merely a vertically stretched version of those companies' saloons and coupes. Ahead is Range Rover's usual minimalist rectangle of leather dashboard, with a T-piece coming down as the center console. The shapes are clean, sparsely ornamented but wrapped in subtle, plush texture. The doors carry big planks of wood, but a reserved, monochrome grain. The big news here is the display and control system. In the center console are two big touchscreens, both apparently edgeless and glossy black when the ignition's turned off. The lower one carries a pair of knurled twist and push knobs. Switch on and the upper screen is much like any other upmarket cars. it carries navigation, entertainment, comms and lots of configurable car features. It's not overloaded by having to carry the climate control though. While this display was fine when the Velar launched, it's now starting to age and Land Rover has designed itself into a corner here. The pop-out screen recess isn't large enough for the new Pivi Pro system as found in the latest Defender and Discovery 5. Whoops. Environment is on the lower screen. It has pleasantly delivered designs of breezes of calm air floating into the tenants. The two knurled handles control driver and traveler temperature. Or then again push them and they're the seat warmers, their markings changing to suit. Or then again hit the seat rub button on the screen and their markings change once more, assisting you with turning up or down the back rub's power. You before long understand this is a ton simpler than utilizing a touchscreen alone. Also, those wheels have other setting subordinate capacities, each time changing their markings to suit. In the event that you hit a tab that replaces the environment screen by the Elements mode screen, you can change rough terrain mode with the handle. You've additionally got a reconfigurable arrangement of TFT driver instruments. Furthermore, a head-up show. With this screen region, some of which can be sub-separated freely, it's effectively conceivable to have all that you need on show constantly. You don't need to continue to punch at catches for nav, media, or vehicle, since they can have a screen each. This makes it far simpler to use than many screen-based frameworks. For example, on a lengthy drive through obscure country, you can swipe the music show and controls down onto the lower screen. Then, at that point, utilize the upper one for a full north-up map, and have your 3D neighborhood map in the instrument group. In case you're trading frequently between powerful modes, leave that on the base screen, and separation the top screen to show amusement and nav, and have your outing PC in the instruments. Note that the new controlling wheel, unintelligibly from the Defender, has marginally more affordable-looking enlightened controls nowadays. Since the front seats are massive, there isn't the legroom you'd expect behind. It's okay for most grown-ups however, and they get ports and vents and lights. Lodge stockpiling is tight. There's no profound stockpiling canister in the mid-control area. The boot is enormous in region yet somewhat shallow, but since this is a long vehicle the general limit beats rivals. Under the floor it just accounts for a space saver, however that is better compared to simply a jar of fixed glue when you've cut a tire in the wild. Uncommon notice to the discretionary Meridian sound framework, which sounds like music as opposed to like a music framework. That is surprising in a vehicle. Another alternative is the finished fabric upholstery, for vegans who don't need calfskin. We'd pick it on Solace alone. Number 3. What is it like to drive? To keep the Velar on pace with rivals, Land Rover has totally overhauled its engine range. And the buzzword, as you'd expect in our changing times, is hybrid. The straight 6 petrol and diesel offerings are now offered with 48-volt hybrid boost assistance, to reduce turbo lag and enhance throttle response. You know the drill. Electro Zap doesn't make the Velar's engines night and day snappier than before, but the D300 is a great all-rounder. Smooth, quiet, easy-going and good for 0 to 60 miles per hour in 6 seconds, and all the in-gear shove you could ever realistically ask for in a 2-ton SUV. Wind it out a bit and it even generates a cultured 6-pot growl. Land Rover claims 38 mpg, we got 32, and that was from an example just a few hundred miles old. Even if you have to shut your eyes and hold your nose when ticking the diesel box on the configurator, there's still a deep sense of rightness of this being the most appropriate engine that the Velar was born to cradle. Of course, this is probably the last diesel engine Jag Land Rover will ever develop. If so, it's a masterpiece to sign off on. Even the 4-cylinder D200 diesel is a decent thing. Nothing like the performance of the D300 of course, but for cruising around it's more than enough engine. Keep the revs low and it's quiet too. You may see over 40 mpg on the motorway, where the D200 acquits itself rather well, too. So, what'll take the diesel's place? Plug-in powertrains, of course. The headline act for Velar V1.2 is the P400e, not to be confused with the P400, which is a 400 bhp straight 6 petrol offering, sitting above the P340 engine in the range. Anyway, the P400e teams a 300 bhp 4-cylinder engine with a 17.1 kWh battery pack beneath the boot floor, fed from a 7 kW onboard charger that'll juice up to 80% in half an hour from a public rapid charger or 1 hour 40 minutes on your home wallbox. Teamed with a 140 bhp motor, the Velar's P400e powertrain sends it from 0 to 60 miles per hour in a very respectable 5.1 seconds, and gives official test results of 130 mpg with CO2 emissions rated at 49 grams per kilometer. Now, if you're PHEV literate, you'll know such numbers are a fiction unless you allow the engine to switch on less often than a student flat's central heating. But even so, we found an indicated 75 mpg was possible on a 30-mile test route, which conveniently consumed all of the battery reserves. Enough stats. What you need to know is this is a good PHEV, not a token one. You don't get the sense this is merely an underpowered petrol car with the motor from a stubble shaver shoved in as an afterthought. Performance on the e-motor alone is adequate, and the handover moment between electric and petrol is seamless. There's a real sense the electric half of the equation is pulling its considerable weight in adding potency to the powertrain, while keeping engine revs low so the fossil fuel burning bit doesn't come over all reedy and strained. Yes, it feels heavier in the thick-set steering and the body control, and you can sense the ride isn't as deftly damped as a regular Velar. It's a bit of a shame given this car's styling only works on enormous Ferris wheel-sized alloys, but not a deal-breaker. The brake pedal isn't typically mushy like some hybrids too. If you're doing city work, this is the Velar to have. Another well-resolved aspect is how you interact with the P400e's modes. VW Group SUVs see fit to bury their driver modes in a touchscreen sub-menu dungeon where you'll never find them. Land Rover has reserved a handy slab of touchscreen real estate for the EV mode, hybrid mode and charge save mode buttons, so they're always at hand to make best use of your chosen power source. Well played. Don't come to the Velar for Porsche Macan-like agility. Like a proper Range Rover, it's dignified and in command of most situations, with well-oiled accurate steering. If you're in a real hurry, the Sport mode does Tauten the damping, lower the body and shift more power to the rear. It doesn't really want to be hoiked around tight corners like this, mind. It's too remote and isolated. In fact, a Range Rover Sport, with its adaptive anti-roll bars, can actually feel more lithe and engaging. Acting like this is just one pole of its abilities. The other pole is the off-road modes, raising it off the ground, if it's spec'd with air springs, changing powertrain calibration and the traction and diff thresholds. It's got wade sensing so it'll ford a flood, and doors that wrap down around the sills so you don't get mucky calves when you get in and out. When you are in those modes, the head-up display shows axle articulation and inclination angles and diff lock status. Oh, and when you take the PHEV off-road, you can enjoy the gorgeous tweet-tweet rustle sounds of nature, as you ooze along on battery power, crushing everything in your path. Number 4. What should I be paying? Costs for the 2021 Velar beginning at £46,110. Yet the Velar you get for your £46,000 is regretfully spec'd on couch caster wheels with all the curbside presence of an as-of-late disposed-of domestic device. You will have to toss some cash at it to get the trim, shading and edges that do this shape equity. About £60,000 should do it. R-Dynamic in addition manages sit over the ordinary Velar, which is fitted as standard with LED headlights, downpour detecting wipers, 19-inch edges, 8-way electric warmed front seats, the 10-inch touchscreen with, aimless we would say, Apple and Android reflecting, and a 3D Encompass camera. The 6CYL diesel is just accessible whenever you've ventured up to R-Dynamic trim, and remains our spec decision, at £60,225 with the superb D300 powertrain ready. In the event that you can stomach a modest diesel and Dacia spec wheels, we discovered Velars on PCP for £580 on the web, with a top-end P400 making an inquiry or £2,870 per month. That contrasts well and comparable spec BMW X4s, yuck, and any semblance of the incomprehensibly less sleek Mercedes GLC coupe, on account of Land Rover's solid residuals. Psyche U. Top Gear's Velar long-termer was scandalous for disturbing availability issues and an affinity for its touchscreen to close down or boot cell phones off the association at whatever point the temperament took it. In the event that your Velar is also distressed, request your vendor sort a product redesign, on the grounds that this is too acceptable a vehicle, and too affable a SUV to be ruined by JLR screenitis.